Hi, this is Dr. Pierre Milo speaking, narrating my book, Rising from the Ashes of Loss, My Voyage Through Grief, available at Amazon.com. Post number 19. I've always wondered why people give up on life and kill themselves. It was always a mystery to me that a struggling person could not find enough courage and strength to face the music, face his or her hardships with pride and dignity. I sadly have to admit that often in my life I looked upon these people with disdain and contempt and compared them to wet noodles and lazy whining slouches. But that was about to change. My life has not always been a picnic either, but through it all, in the end, I always stood tall. I was bullied and beaten up at school, but I fought back. At a very young age, I was abused by a homosexual uncle, but eventually I fought back and grew out of it. When I lost a job, I found another one. And when I suffered the devastating traumatic loss of my young son, after crying endlessly for days, I picked myself up and went on with my life. Aaron's courage triumphed over grief. Because I always thought of myself as a strong-willed individual capable of facing the worst hardships. I had the tendency to be intolerant of people who were not at my level on this, and considered them weak and unreliable. But on a very special day, all this changed dramatically, and I never perceived life the same way again. One dreary February afternoon, coming back to my shifty house, after a satisfactory walk in the park, I had a lifelong experience. The last few days had been horrible and so emotionally charged that any attempts to ease my debilitating, stabbing pain were futile. I was desperate and just did not know what to do. I was lost, disoriented, like I was never before. At the end of my role, I felt I had no strength to talk to anyone, nor did I feel like it. The walls of my little house were dangerously closing in on me, crushing my lungs mercilessly. I could not breathe and keep grasping for air. My weak, shaking legs could barely hold me up, and my out-of-whack heart was pounding so wildly I thought it could burst through my chest at any moment. I felt more alone than ever. I missed Louise tremendously, and everywhere I looked, I could not escape the sight of her beautiful face. It suddenly dawned on me then that the only place I could be, the only place I wanted to be, was with her. The severity of my pain and desperation was so overwhelming that at one point my legs gave out on me and I lay down crouching on the floor, miserably in gut-wrenching agony. Completely broken and subdued, in a desperate attempt to breathe, I momentarily raised my head upwards and for some unwanted, unknown reason opened my eyes and briefly and stared at the open kitchen cupboard. There it was, my way out. The answer to my predicament. Freedom. It was right there in front of me. Two 250 milliliter bottles of liquid morphine and 24 patches of topical morphine, enough to kill a horse. The liquid would put me out quickly and the patches would finish me off slowly. The stash had been left there by the nursing staff after Louise died, It was uncommon to do that. They usually pick it up, but this time they had forgotten. And it was begging to be abused. I was in some kind of trance, and my thoughts were traveling at 100 miles an hour, deliberating on my next move. Man, it'd be so easy. Plaster myself with the deadly morphine patches, gulp the sweet liquid, and voila. I'm off to see the wizard and disappear from this crazy world. No more pain, no more agony. I'd be gone and with Louise forever. So tempting, so enticing. I was in such despair that at this point, the thought of dying was a blessing. The horror of committing such a despicable act wasn't even a consideration. I was in the grasp of an indescribable burning pains of hell, and I needed relief immediately. Something was holding me back, though. Some kind of energy was pulling me the other way. And like in an emotional tug-of-war, I was torn between the beast and the angel fighting inside of me. I was literally a struggle for life or death. And in the end, those few minutes of hesitation allowed me the time necessary to realize the foolishness of what I was about to do. After having been in the grips of despair, helplessness, and agony, I can now understand better why some desperate soul would go all the way, though, and take their own life, and how no one is sheltered from this weakness. In the end, what counts, though, is that I didn't do it and walked away. An act that separates the strong from the weak, the choice I made. Edgar Cayce, one of the greatest poets in modern times, proclaims that a person under great duress and with an intellect completely broken down may experience a period of grace, be touched by a divine spark, and be blessed with strength, inspiration, and courage. I draw a parallel between Cayce's period of grace and Zen Buddhism's brief glimmer of enlightenment, which also elevates the mind to higher spheres of understanding. Zen claims that one can achieve illumination by killing the ego, either by extreme meditation or by trying to solve koans. Koans are complicated riddles impossible to understand by intellectual processing only. The goal is to force the practitioner to exhaust its thinking process, break down the conscious barrier, and allow enlightenment to set in. I don't know what happened to me that day, but I suspect that some kind of mysterious force intervened in my favor that helped steer my life towards a different course and not end my life. Was it a divine period of grace? A brief spark of enlightenment, inspiration from a spirit guide? Or Louise sending me a message from the other side to hang on? Or simply that out of deep despair, I let go and succeeded in tapping into an inner self and drew from my own strength? I guess I'll never know for sure. And I will always remember that moment in time as a major mystical turning point in my life. God, Buddha, gurus, mystic parapsychologists of all kinds, from now on, I will keep positive doubt about the veracity of your claims on the unknown. My life-changing experience expanded my consciousness further, and I'm grateful for it. The roller coaster ride of good days and bad days go on still, and if I am to survive this, I need a serious grip on myself and do what needs to be done. Can't live like that forever. I need to structure a plan of action, gather up my strengths and strategize. Breathing exercise are the first to come to mind, as they have always been my safety net through adversity. Although I've been practicing pranayama, which is a yogic breathing techniques, for many years, this time would be the most serious effort I could ever give it. I don't seem to have a choice. Pain is the absolute motivator, and I am overwhelmed by it. As I am planning my strategy, I remember how breathing exercise literally saved my life when my young son was killed 27 years ago. If it wouldn't have been for Kapalabhati, my favorite cleansing breathing exercise, I don't know how it would have ended. I was so devastated and shocked that I couldn't even eat a single morsel of food for a whole week. At the funeral, I looked like a zombie and almost fainted in church. For weeks after, I was useless and depressed, and so full of pain that listening to music or playing my piano was impossible, as the gesture only increased my sorrows. I truly believe that, along with my sheer will to survive, the practice of pranayama was instrumental in my recovery. Now, for the second major loss in my life, I will try to rely on its magic again. I hope and pray that I can make it work once more, for I am desperate, and I sense that it is my last resort. I will also include in my strategy another psychological deprogramming technique. It's called progressive desensitization or disconnecting strategies. Both are similar methods whereby a person learns to detach oneself progressively from the pain associated with a life event or the loss of a person. In my practice as a therapeutic counselor, I had successfully developed a deprogramming method that incorporated both techniques. I will start by self-therapy with that. Also, I will increase the length and intensity of my Tai Chi practice and my Zen meditations. Up to now, I have only made lame and superficial attempts at their practice and thus did not reap many noticeable benefits. But I can change that, now that I'm able to grasp at those momentary sparks of energy brought about by my brief instant of clarity. I can and I will make this work, I affirm to myself. The best time of the day will be mid-afternoon. It's always been mid-afternoon for me. For the longest time, this time of the day has always been a dead zone for me, and since my loss, it is even worse. Although the emptiness that Louise left when she passed away fills every minute of my day, it is the period between 4 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon that it is the worst. I don't know what it is. Some kind of holiness in the atmosphere that magically appears to have amplified tenfold since I'm alone in the house. Seems like the perfect time.